it's not just like investors who ask the questions like what are the use cases, the political leaders are asking it. And I think it's incumbent upon us to show up and say there's a real products, real services being used by real businesses, whether it be trucking companies, logistic companies, utility companies, or the Lyfts of the world. Like, I think that's very important for us to do.
All right, we're here with the CEO and co-founder of Hivemapper, Ariel Seidman. Thank you so much for being here, alongside Cosmo Jiang, general partner at Pantera. And we're excited for this one, for this chat, because there's not a lot of real-life projects in crypto land. But
ouch.
It's true. I mean, here we are. But what you're doing at Hivemapper, I think, is really, really cool. For those who don't know, why don't we start there? What's the mission of what you're doing with Hivemapper?
Yeah, it's to build the freshest possible map in the world, but do it with vision, right? So historically, all the maps that have been created in terms of real-time data, they've all been based on motion, right? So you think about Waze, Google Maps, all that's basically doing is following your phone and saying, oh, you were going 30 miles an hour because we're following your GPS traces, but they don't know what happened if all of a sudden you start going 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, right? Because they don't have eyes and they don't have intelligence actually in your vehicle at the edge that actually understands and sees what's going on. So we have this device that we built that can see and understand everything that's going on. So it says, okay, there's 3 lanes over here, 2 out of the 3 lanes are blocked, there's a big accident or there's a big construction or it's half flooded, because we're just seeing and we're understanding all that and we can share all that information. So we've mapped now about 33 or 34% of the global road network in about a little over 2 years. So one of the fastest growing map projects ever.
And I think importantly, maybe I'm wrong here, Cosmo, but I think importantly, part of this and what makes it cool is that it is natively crypto. So it's not the fact that it's like Google going out there and mapping everything. Talk to me about that, because that's the component that I think is kind of unique.
It's like, so I spend a lot of my role is obviously making good investments, but also delivering and evangelizing the industry to potential investors and institutions. The 2 questions I always get are, 1, why blockchain? And 2, where are the real use cases? I feel like, DePIN protocols, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, of which it's kind of a weird amalgamation because it's a lot of different things, but of which Hivemapper is a great example, is like the perfect distillation of a protocol that exists because of tokens and delivering a real service. Hivemapper has done an incredible job of creating a better, fresher map than what exists by legacy incumbents by utilizing token incentives, and is now really starting to monetize that and delivering that service to real customers. And so that's why we're so pumped.
And obviously, doing all the things that you're doing cannot really function if blockchain's slow or it doesn't offer kind of the things that you're trying to execute on. I mean, how did you kind of land where you've landed building Hivemapper on Solana? And talk to me about that journey.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is in terms of the blockchain that we chose obviously because of the costs, right? At the time when we were making the decision, it was either Ethereum or Solana, and it was just like, okay, this one is like a fraction of the cost of that one. That's a pretty simple decision. So that was really, really important. I will add just one thing to what Cosmo said in terms of the things that makes it uniquely. The incentive piece is important. There's no doubt about that. But the other part is, and we tried to do this with cash before we did crypto incentives. And what happened with cash, well, it's really hard to send cash to the Philippines, right? And so people actually complained. They're like, hey, can you just send me crypto instead? And so that was kind of the thing that started to be like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on here? So that was one aspect. But the other thing was when we were just paying people cash, they'd have some person would have their device looking at the sky, right? And we're like, well, we're not mapping the sky, so we're not gonna pay you, right? And they'd be like, we're gonna report you to the Better Business, you're cheating us. We're like, no, there's nothing valuable here, right? So here's the interesting thing. Once we basically said, okay, here's the protocol, all the rewards are on the chain, all the consumption, right, of the map data is also on chain, all of a sudden that went away. Right, it was like the community just started to trust the entire system as a whole. And so it wasn't like we were the bad guys. We were part of the community, and the community was helping us push forward and being like, no, it's all there. It may not work for you for whatever reason, but if it does, here's what's happening. And so I think that was just incredible. Something that I didn't fully appreciate until it actually happened.
Yeah.
Something going back, exactly what you said, but to take it, maybe to zoom out a little bit, all of civilization and all of the fruits of labor that we enjoy today is built on capitalism, which is built on the coordination of incentives, right? I think the magic sauce of what crypto really brings, as much as sure, cryptography is cool, it's really about the coordination of incentives in a really novel way. And what Hivemapper does, and protocols like it, by using token incentives, you're sort of equitizing your users. That is a total disruption of what has happened in capitalism today. And so I think that potential part also is pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think decentralizing things is, critical and core to kind of why Bitcoin worked. People think it's really just kind of like the technology piece, but I actually think it was the realigning of incentives of people using Bitcoin and why the value accrual went to them. But I guess, to pair the points, I always joke around with Cosmo. I actually do think you are the Warren Buffett of crypto. I'm going to keep saying it until it happens. But he is, because he tries to find fundamentals in crypto. And there aren't a lot of crypto projects that are receiving deals from Lyft for the data you guys are producing at Hivemapper. And so I wanted to get into that too, because what are you seeing in terms of the increase in partnerships? If there are the Lyfts, I assume there are more. Yeah. And how does it really work with Hivemapper on your end?
Okay, so let me take a step back in terms of, before I get into the specific deals and some of the different customer wins that we've had recently. So we have basically right now two major businesses. So one is data solutions, where we are providing a host of different data API products and services to enterprise customers, right? So that probably, like in that category, we have clear product market fit. Lyft is one, TomTom, Trimble's another one. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 that get announced in the next 3 or 4 weeks here on top of that. So like just in the last month, I think we've closed 4 deals. If you look at like all of like 2021, I think that, we did all 4 deals. So like just this month, we've done as many as we did 2 years ago. And the reason for that is those customers have to see scale, right? Like that's really, really important. They have to basically be like, okay, there's something to buy, right? Because you guys have like all the coverage. And then I have to start to trust the data, right? And so you have to kind of go through that process with them of like, they have to trust the data. So they throw you like $10,000 at first, and they're like, okay, this is interesting. 50,000, okay, 200,000. That's how it kind of goes. So that's one category. The other is commercial fleets, right? So commercial fleets, these are utility companies, trucking companies, logistic companies. They operate in the physical world, right? And so today they basically just have like a nanny cam. So we show up and we're like, hey, we have this device. It's mapping. And it provides you like understanding of where your vehicles are. So if you're a utility company, as an example, it's a little bit boring, but I think it's exciting. Okay, here's all the utility poles, and they're like, all the utility poles, you know exactly where they're at. We're like, yes, we know exactly where that here. They're like, oh my God, I was trying to do this manually. This is incredible. And they're like, can you tell me the road width? We're like, yes, we can tell you the road width too. And like the pitch is like, just put this device on your vehicle. If you drive that road, boom, you got all this data. If not, the entire network. So that's also been pretty exciting. Logistics as well, et cetera. That's probably a much bigger market than the first one in terms of just like the raw number of customers. But we're newer in that one than we are in data solutions.
In terms of that too, and on the components, Cosmo, I think from an investing perspective, again, we kind of joke that there's not a lot of real projects in crypto, but I think the data component, to your point on like realignment of incentives, is another thing. Is like people don't want to give their data up or kind of what is being tracked as they go around to a big tech giant. But if they can kind of share in kind of what you're describing there in terms of these solutions and be a part of the solution, I think that's kind of unique.
Yeah, I think this really goes to, protocols like Hivemapper are benefiting from this move towards gig economy work. The idea that you can be an independent contractor, to provide independent work and sustain yourself by being, the human existence is still about having purpose and providing value and creating value. And so as an independent contractor, you still can do that, provide value, provide a real service, and get paid for that, and that's really beautiful. One thing that I want to reemphasize that Ariel kind of hinted at, which is like what enables all this and what makes Hivemapper really special is, sure, a lot of people collect data, but Hivemapper can collect better data in a cheaper way than other people because of this massive capital and labor arbitrage, which kind of goes along with the gig economy.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, similar to kind of the DePIN projects being the ones that a lot of people in the space have latched on to, we're trying to build a decentralized media outlet at Coinage. We were down speaking with the Crypto Task Force. One of our other members, the founder of Akash, who's dealing with decentralized cloud, was speaking in front of Congress today. You were recently speaking in front of the House Financial Services Committee, or one of those?
Not the House. It was like a subcommittee of the House Financial. Yes.
Very good. But I think a lot of these whether it's Crypto Task Force, Congress, everyone right now is trying to figure this out. What is the messaging that you're trying to push with kind of what you're doing with Hivemapper to help people learn that everything in crypto is not scam? I feel like it's really hard for people in the industry to get that.
So this was like my first foray into like the whole world. So I like in the prior administration, I just kept my head low. First of all, we're just building, right? Like we're kind of new, right? So like I don't feel like we had built up any credibility to show up and say like, hey, we're doing this great, amazing thing, because we were still building. It was still early days. The other thing is like you just get your head shot off, quite frankly. Obviously, the new administration take a very different policy approach, and I think that is bipartisan, right? Like you're seeing Democrats and Republicans rally around crypto. We just saw that with the stablecoin bill. In terms of DePIN specifically, I think the message that I heard was, where have you guys been, right? Like this is interesting. You need to get your message out because people, Cosmo was saying this, is like, it's not just like investors who ask the questions like, what are the use cases? The political leaders are asking it. And I think it's incumbent upon us to show up and say, there's a real products, real services being used by real businesses, whether it be trucking companies, logistic companies, utility companies, or the Lyfts of the world. Like, I think that's very important for us to do.
And it kind of sucks, the backdrop of like Congress only knowing about FTX and all the collapses. It's nice to talk about. It's nice to talk about projects that aren't that, I would think.
No, it's like when people talk about infrastructure, when they talk about tech, like you see their eyes glaze over. And like, look, I think it's important. We invest in a lot of infrastructure and a lot of basic tech. But man, it's like when I talk about stuff like Hivemapper, people all of a sudden sit up in their seats and they get alert. That is what is so exciting.
Well, I think part of it too is, like I said, the integration of data and all this stuff. You say the human existence is so much tied to value and creation, but it's also a big question right now, maybe we wrap with this, is the idea of AI now coming around. How do you see kind of what you're building in Hivemapper fitting into that as it kind of becomes, maybe not even humans using this data, but machines now?
I gotta add one thing to what you're saying. It's like one of the staffers in DC was like, so could I, like my son is like drives to like college, could I put this in their car? I was like, yeah, for sure.
One driver at a time.
I was like, I wasn't even pitching. I was like, she asked me afterwards. But okay, so AI. So for AI for us is, so the big thing, like when we launched, and Cosmo does this really well, is when we launched, it was wildly successful, right? Like even well beyond our imaginations. So historically, goes back now 2.5 years, we uploaded all the imagery data. And then we ran all these different AI models on AWS, right? It was crazy amounts, right? We never expected to be this, big so quickly. And so this new device that's now shipping, basically takes all of the AI that we had in the cloud and moves it to the device. And so we're building the map, all the things I was describing before in terms of like, okay, there's 3 lanes over here, there's construction here, speed limits to this, whatever. That's happening on the device. And so there's 2 major advantages of this. One is that your costs go way, way, way down, which is huge. So we're no longer AWS's best customer or second best customer. The other thing is in terms of upload, you're only uploading the little parts that you really need, right? Only those things that are actually changing. And so that helps you in terms of like just, moving data much faster, much more efficiently. And so we spent a lot of time like building out all the AI models to run efficiently at the edge. And so that's been like about a 1.5-year process to go do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, at least from the coverage side of like a journalism side, it seems like there's so much interest in AI, but there's so little understanding of like how it'll get there in a stepwise function.
Yeah.
Like there need to be projects that are like they're kind of merging like what that world will look like with the world we have today. And like,
yeah, I think it's funny when people ask me if I invest in crypto or invest in AI, because I do spend so much of my time thinking about AI. I kind of look at them puzzled because I feel like I got this question 10 years ago when I was I've spent most of my career in equities, and people used to ask me, oh, are you investing in an internet company? Does that company have a .com? And I was just like, today that's a bizarre question to ask. No one would ask that. And like 10 years from now, no one's gonna ask if you're investing in an AI company because everything will have an AI embedded. And Hivemapper is such a great example of that. Like Ariel sort of like, undersells himself, but he does, like what he's not saying is that his data is gonna be so important for so many AI use cases, so many robotics use cases. And that's why building this is, and when you think about what makes AI work, it's data, energy, compute, and like data is one of the key 3 ingredients that he's helping build towards.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the roadmap now, I know there's some stuff you can't discuss, but as you've said, building on this and the excitement that you're seeing, how do you see this kind of accelerating as you build it in the AI age?
Well, the big thing for us is, the third leg that we're just starting to build is consumer navigation. There has not been any major innovation in consumer navigation since Waze, which was 2012, I think, or 2011, where they sold to Google. That was hugely, at the time, it was like hugely innovative, right? It was basically crowdsourced maps from our GPS traces.
Yeah.
People being like, where's the cop, all that type of stuff. That was the last major innovation in consumer navigation.
I didn't think it's been that long, but yeah.
Yeah, Apple's done some interesting things here and there, but like fundamentally, that was a huge step forward, right? In terms of how maps got built, how they got refreshed, et cetera. So huge kudos to that entire team. And so, once we start to show people in the consumer navigation perspective, it's like, now you have a visual map, right? Like a map that sees and understands everything in real time. I think that's going to be pretty eye-opening. And quite frankly, you can't do that without AI, right? Like understanding the world. And it's not just like, oh, there's a speed limit sign here, stop sign there. You're like, I'll just give you the example because like we have a lot of truckers in our community. They're like, don't just tell me where the truck station is. Tell me whether or not it's open and how many goddamn trucks are there, right? That's what they want to know. They want to know that there's 18 trucks backed up, because if 18 trucks backed up, they're going around. Like, there's no way that they're going to stop at that thing, right? So that's kind of the level of richness that customers are looking for, that you start to bring into like a real product. All of a sudden it's like, oh, that's interesting.
No, I mean, I think it's, again, we've been doing a few of these today. We haven't talked to a lot of people building things that are being onboarded to Lyft and the others, but
That's crazy. Multi-billion-dollar public tech companies are paying Ariel for his data. That's crazy, right? People don't realize that.
Should not be overlooked at all. And again, appreciate you sitting down with us here to talk about it too, Ariel Seidman, co-founder
Appreciate it.
at Hivemapper. Thank you.